Turkey says it has suspended all trade with Israel, citing the worsening humanitarian situation in the Palestinian territory. Ankara said all imports and exports would be suspended until the Israeli government allowed an uninterrupted and sufficient flow of aid. Well, trade between the two countries was worth almost $7 billion last year. Israel's Foreign Minister Israel Katz accused Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan of behaving like a dictator, adding that Turkey would lose. Well, in Gaza, the United Nations claims aid lorries have been regularly blocked on a road leading to a key Israeli checkpoint. It says these delays are hindering humanitarian efforts, although Israel says it is doing everything necessary to facilitate aid. Well, BBC Verify's Jake Horton has been looking at the evidence.
People in northern Gaza are facing imminent famine, and humanitarian groups say more food is urgently needed. The majority of aid comes over land on lorries. It's collected from southern Gaza and taken north. How quickly these lorries are able to travel through Gaza is crucial. Israel says it's doing everything necessary to make that process as smooth as possible. But the UN says big queues at a key Israeli checkpoint inside Gaza are repeatedly hindering its efforts. The checkpoint is here, on Salah al-Din Road, a key route for aid south to north. We've been investigating reports of blockages here over the past month. Exclusive satellite images obtained by BBC Verify show a bottleneck of lorries just north of that checkpoint. In this photo, from the 15th of April, you can see dozens of lorries. We've counted more than 70 in a kilometre-long queue. The UN says the blockage built up over 3 days, and almost half of the fleet used to deliver aid was stuck at its peak. The UN has previously sent us these images from on the ground. You can see a line of empty lorries pulled up on the side of the road. We've located these to the same stretch of road on Salah al-Din. Similar blockages have happened before, according to the UN. And we found satellite images that confirm this, like this incident in early April, where you can see dozens of trucks waiting north of the checkpoint. We asked the Israeli authorities about these reported delays, but we haven't heard back. Israel has previously accused the UN of being too slow to distribute aid. In this tweet posted on the 11th of April by COGAT, the Israeli body that oversees humanitarian efforts, they said there was sufficient aid for 600 lorries waiting to be picked up, and that the bottlenecks aren't on the Israeli side. A week later, in another tweet, COGAT said the aid had built up further, urging the UN to do its job. The UN says their work in Gaza is often restricted by Israeli rules. Israel now says it's reopened the main aid crossing into the north, but as people there edge closer to famine, the UN says better cooperation is needed from all sides to distribute supplies properly within Gaza.
Yeah. Jake Horton there. Well, with me now is Saeed Shahata from BBC Arabic. Saeed, all of this underlines the need for a truce. So how are those talks going?
There is no talks right now. The latest is Mr. Ismail Haniyeh, the chief of the political bureau of Hamas, talked with the Qatari Prime Minister yesterday and talked with the head of intelligence of Egypt, Abbas Kamel, and they talk about sending a new delegation from Hamas to negotiate about a truce. They were supposed Hamas to respond to a proposal from Israel on Monday, but they didn't. On Wednesday, they didn't. So it looks there is a problem because Hamas and Israel, they have a big gap between them. Hamas conditions the withdrawal of the Israeli forces from Gaza. They want to...
And a permanent ceasefire.
A permanent ceasefire. Yeah. But Israel is saying, after the release of some hostages, a return of some prisoners, will be kind of a truce for 40 days where there will be no hostilities or no fighting. And they call in the next second stage of a sustainable period of calm, and instead of using permanent ceasefire. So there's a gap between them. In addition to that, Mr. Netanyahu insisting on launching a ground offensive in Rafah. So, and this even in spite of the warning from the United States, from the Palestinian, from other United Nations organization, because it would be the catastrophic effect on the civilians, where there is more than 1 million people live in Rafah. Most most of them are displaced from the north and other places in Gaza.
But you'd think all of this would put pressure on both sides to reach an agreement. Is it just that their demands are too far apart? Because even America is putting a lot of pressure on both sides.
The Americans, they're trying to put, they're saying, Mr. Blinken and Mr. Biden saying now Hamas turn to accept what is Mr. Blinken said a strong proposal from Israel, but in Hamas' opinion is not, because their condition are not compromised according to them. So they insist on the withdrawal and the return of the displaced people from the south to the north, and this will affecting, the situation inside Gaza.
So the picture you're painting is that sides are very far apart at the moment. The longer this goes on, though, it's bad news for both sides, and our BBC colleagues are reporting alarm in Israel over possible legal action over Gaza. This interesting report on the BBC website saying that the International Criminal Court is potentially planning to seek arrest warrants for military and political leaders on suspicions of war crimes, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He could be among those.
It's not a good news for Israel, because there is some isolation for Israel on international areas. There is demonstration in America, there is demonstration in other places. There is a case by South Africa against Israel in the International Court of Justice, and now seeking arrest warrants against Mr. Netanyahu and other top leaders from the army and the politician. It's not a good news. And even Mr. Netanyahu, and this shows his concern about that. He said he accused the ICC of attempting to paralyze the ability of Israel to defend itself. So he accusing them, but the ICC looking at that after Mr. Karim Khan, the chief prosecutor of the ICC, looking into the cases.
He visited Israel, didn't he, and the occupied West Bank last December. And this is coming off the back of that.
Yeah, he visited and he condemned the violence against civilians on both sides, not only on the Hamas, in Gaza side, but also what the Hamas done in Israel. So he condemned both sides, and he promised to investigate that.
Yeah.
And part of that is maybe a plan of arrest warrants against Mr. Netanyahu. Potentially,
Mr. Netanyahu. I should just say, Mr. Netanyahu has called the prospect of senior Israeli figures joining the wanted list as an outrage of historic proportions, accusing the ICC of attempting to paralyze Israel's ability to defend itself. Saeed, as always, thank you very much.